Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5:30, and I will call this special work session of the Burnsville City Council to order. The clerk would note that all council members are present, and as we continue to find solutions during this global pandemic, tonight's meeting is being conducted both in person and online. All of our city council members and staff are in the council chambers and practicing social distance. As you can see, we're all far apart. Members of the public may attend in person if you like. Otherwise, the public can watch this meeting online at burnsville.gov/meetings or Comcast Channel 16 or 859. The public can also still participate through Zoom by joining us at zoom.us/join or by calling 651-372-8299. More information is available on our meeting webpage and in the council agenda packet. Please note that there is an audio delay if you are watching us on TV or online. So if you speak, please mute your video broadcast first. If Zoom meetings attendees experience audio issues, we ask you to leave the meeting and then log back in. This usually resolves the issue. So, our work sessions are very informal and we go directly to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the discussion on City Council belonging and inclusion efforts. And our city manager, Ms. Coley, is going to be, are you presenting this?
I am, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. You've all seen this before. This has been a goal and initiative of the council to explore a belonging or an inclusivity initiative. About a month or so ago, you along with the rest of the Burnsville leaders reviewed a proposal developed by the YMCA that was a multi-step proposal that would include both work done by the council, by the Burnsville leaders, and then reaching out and partnering with our community. For that first step, the Y has also created a proposal for the City Council to work through, including two 90-minute sessions focusing on self and social awareness and leading into the future as it relates to belonging and inclusion. So you've, within your packet, there's a summary of the proposal, and happy to answer any questions, but also get any feedback from you as far as the next steps. We certainly can go forward with this first initiative and then revisit with the council on what their goals and objectives are and how we may want to envision going forward with this this initiative. So happy to stand for any questions, but looking for a council affirmation that you're interested in pursuing this.
Members of the council, I mean, we've had the discussion, and so there's two sessions, self and social awareness, and the second one is leading into the future. Any concerns, any thoughts? Shall we direct the city manager to move forward with the plan in place?
I think we should.
Okay, so we
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so we continue to move forward and the plan is set. The next item is on-sale liquor license fee structure from comparison cities. Our city clerk, Mrs. Michelle Collins, is going to be presenting, and you did quite a thorough job in your background.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Switch from minute taker to presenter really quickly here.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody. I wanted to let you know, I'm sure I gotta stay close enough to the microphone. I suppose I should remove this. That I did try to do kind of a comprehensive. Typically in the years past, we kind of look at our, what we call our market cities for comparisons. And I thought, you know, we've been doing that for years. And what does that mean? How does that compare now to the larger scale of other suburban cities? So I did take a look at 19 cities between the population of 35,000 and like 90,000, which seemed to be a natural cutoff, like 30 less and 30 more than Burnsville. And I found that of those, Burnsville and 12 other cities were single fee structure cities. and they ranged with fees anywhere from $5,800 to $15,000. The average fee was $8,148. I'm gonna switch this over to this real quick. You can see here, if you take off Blaine at the lowest and Richfield at the highest, you still end up with a very similar, we still fall right smack
the
dab
middle.
right there below the middle of the range. So even with those two that kind of you would think would skew it off a little bit, because they kind of skew it off equally, we still end up at the middle of the range, even if I took the high and the low off of there. Burnsville's fee is set at $8,100 for right now, and that's just for the regular full on-sale liquor license. That doesn't include the Sunday on-sale. That's an additional $200. That fee is set by the state. The city does not set that. We also found 6 cities that had a tiered fee structure, less popular structure, but there was a couple that based it on actual alcohol sales, and then found one city that based it on their percentage of alcohol sales to their comparison of non-alcohol sales. And I even found one that had based it on the size of the customer space in the building. The last structure I found, which it was in Edina, they had like a kind of a discount structure. They have a single fee structure, but if the applicant does not have any violations from 1 year, they knock off $500 for the fee. And if they don't have any violations for 2 years, they knock off $1,000, 2 or more.
So that's for their restaurants and their bars, right? Because it's a municipal,
This is all for
On-
on sale only.
on sale.
And we're not talking about off sale at all.
so this
right.
is all on sale.
Right, this is just the full on sale liquor license.
Okay,
So this does not include information about beer and wine licenses, that type of thing. We're looking at that full on sale, which is, I believe, what the council
yeah.
was specifically interested in. So here's a copy of the survey. All of this survey information was in your background, and kind of put Burnsville on the list there. And then the second page showed us all the different tiered structured cities and the discount structure. Looking into the tiered fee structure, I asked the cities, what do you require from your applicants? What extra do you need to comply with this? And basically they said they either need sales tax information. They have these sales tax forms that they have to file with the Department of Revenue. They need to submit these to the cities. And then some said that they could use a certified letter from an accountant, and I had one city that told me they wanted both. Businesses that did not provide documentation, not all cities said this, but most of them said that if they did not provide any documentation at all, they were required to pay the highest amount to get in. Now, some cities, so like when you, let me go back one step here. Some cities required new applicants to start at the top. Some cities required them to start at the bottom, and I had one city that had it in the middle, where the new applicants was, because there was no sales or any other information to base that off of. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
I do.
Yeah,
Go back to
Councilman.
Edina.
Councilmember
With
Gustafson.
with the way they structure that, with the kind of the good behavior clause, I guess you'd put in it. How many of their restaurants and bars actually qualify for those discounts, do you know?
She said that she had quite a few that had the 2-year discount, but she didn't have the actual numbers for me.
Okay, so it's kind of like when we first started the rental licensing. If you were good property, you didn't pay much anything, and if you weren't, you did.
Oh, the STAR
Yeah,
program.
The STAR program,
The STAR program.
kind of the same way. It weeded out your bad players
Yeah.
quickly, and so that we could focus on the bad players and not focus on everybody else
Yeah.
that's just trying to do
Yeah.
their job and to make a living.
You remember the STAR program? Yeah.
I do.
No, I know that you and Dan do. Yeah, both Dans, because we,
We go back away.
yeah.
We do. Roll.
Okay.
Do you want me to ask what the STAR program is?
Yeah, would you?
Yeah.
What's the start?
Those who comply and do the right thing,
Benefit.
yeah, they benefit.
All I can say is your family was part of that.
Claims-free discounts.
Okay, okay. Michelle?
Okay, so as I was talking to these cities, I thought this would be a good idea to find out from them what they're doing about COVID-19. Are they giving refunds? Are they doing reduced fee amounts for the upcoming renewal process? Or what are they doing so that we could kind of get a good comparison of how we compare with that? And we found that 13 of the cities surveyed did issue refunds or reduced fees amounts to varying degrees. Some said they based it on the number of days they were closed and gave them a refund for those days. Some said 20% across the board, whatever the fee is. Some said 25%. It was there's no rhyme or reason to it, just whatever that city decided to do. But what I did notice is for the cities that said they had done nothing in regard to COVID, like reduced fees or anything, they said, well, their renewal fees hadn't come up yet. So they renewed like January 1st or February 1st or something like that. And so their renewal period hadn't come up yet, so the issue hadn't just risen to the top, and they felt that their councils would probably address that at some time later this year when that renewal process was kicked off.
Okay. And did you share with them what we did?
Yes.
Okay.
The fee policy for our financial management plan includes the guidelines for establishing fees. Right now we use, for these types of fees, we use market comparison, which we talk about those market cities. And our goal to be in that upper quartile is typically where we like to sit, the top quarter. 2019 analysis of our fees realized that we were below the middle of the market, and so that was raised from $78.75 to $8,100 at that time. 2020, that's the analysis that I just did. Now that we were in the middle of the market then, in 2019, this analysis proves
We're in the middle.
that is still consistent with our 2019 findings. So after looking at this information, I thought there were some options that the council could consider. You could consider implementing a tiered fee structure. This would mean we would need to establish specific criteria about, are we going to base it on alcohol sales? Are we going to base it on a percentage of alcohol sales compared to non-alcohol sales, or some other different specific amount that we could base it on? And then we're also going to need to say, where's our breaking points? Are we going to have 2 tiers? Are we going to have 3 tiers? Is it going to be based on, how many sales dollars or what have you in that fact? When we looked at the list of fees, I saw, some of them were fairly skewed, where most of them were in one category and maybe one in this category or something like that. So that might take some actual real analysis of finding out what our businesses are at and where we would need to structure those fees to kind of put them where we proportionally would want them to be if we were to adopt a tiered fee structure. There would be additional, of course, staff time. We're going to need to deal with programming for, right now we have this license is set at this fee, and in this case we'd have to have separate those out so that this license at this criteria is set at this fee. So there'd be some programming changes involved in that. Applicants would need to provide us with their sales documentation, and then of course there'd be more documents and staff time involved into maintaining that information. The benefits, though, is when we have an unforeseen drop in sales like we did because of COVID, then their fee is automatically going to go down prospectively, or we would hope that that would be the case. I'm not positive because because we've never gathered any sales information from our licensees. I can't say anything for certain about what it was and what it will be because I don't have anything to base it off of. So it could, but one of the things I did notice that was that even the cities that had these tiered license fees, they still gave them a reduction. So that wasn't a fix for this type of a situation to other cities. They didn't say, well, it'll work itself out because then they'll pay less in the renewal period. So maybe that's not a fix for that. One of the arguments that we've also heard, when I was talking to some of these people out there, was that businesses that have less alcohol sales also require less, like, police resources. Our fees are supposed to be based off of administrative costs and police and enforcement costs, right? And if you say that maybe somebody who has less sales requires less police enforcement or code enforcement or that type of thing, then that argument could be true, that they should be paying less for a fee. But then I talked to some other cities who said that is not our experience at all. We definitely have some cities that, make less than other, have some licensees that have alcohol sales less than others, but the enforcement issues are there. So I couldn't confirm that correlation at all. The second option would be do nothing, right? Maintain the single fee structure as it is. Of course, this is a predictable model. We know, we know how many liquor licensees we have. We can budget for it. If we do a reduction on 27 liquor license fees of $1,000, then we know that's going to affect our budget revenue by $27,000. So it's pretty easy to maintain. But maybe it doesn't represent a need for public safety, but I'm not really sure how we could accurately encapture that need. It's also not responsive to any special circumstances, like when their sales drop significantly during a pandemic. All right. So then I thought, well, there's another option we could do. We could maintain our single fee structure and adjust for a COVID-19 pandemic period. If the council wanted to, say, knock off and I don't know what your appetite is for considering any further reductions at this point, but if you are interested in that, I would say that you could consider a set flat fee of a reduction that goes forward through any pandemic period that restrictions are imposed on our liquor licensees. We would be able to easily estimate that amount for the budget. And one other thing came up that I thought was very interesting. When I was talking to Woodbury, they said they also changed their city code so that in the future, if any disaster, pandemic, or something like that were to happen, there was a clause that staff could administratively make, and I haven't looked at their code yet, so don't ask me the specifics, but they set it up so that their staff could administratively make those decisions without having to go through a full council discussion on how and what that should look like. And I thought that was had a lot of forethought. Any reduction to the liquor license fees would obviously be corresponding to if you increase them, we'll have more revenue. If you decrease them, we'll have less. When it comes to the tiered fee structures, we don't know how that would affect it. And that's all I have for you. Did you have any questions on?
Any questions? Yes, Dan. Gustafson.
When we first started this, I think it's been about a year now.
Yeah.
We started talking about this. This was really a whole lot about the small little restaurant paying the same fee the very large restaurant paid. And somehow that just didn't seem like fair. And so when I'm listening to what you're talking about, all the different measurements, why couldn't we just make it simple? It's just based on capacity. I mean, if you got a capacity of 30 people, your license is this. If you got a capacity of 500, your license is that. I mean, I think that'd be very simple to administer, and we certainly know from our fire department what the capacities are in every building out here, so.
Yeah.
I don't think that'd be information that's hard to find.
And it wouldn't be invasive in saying to the business, give us your,
Give me all your
give us your
information.
information.
So that was my thoughts about when we first started this, was how do we make it a little more fair from some of the
For
smaller little restaurants to actually open up and sell liquor and bring some nice restaurants out to Burnsville.
Okay. Vince?
Thank you. I was kind of going in the same path as Dan, that you could feasibly break this into 2 tiers. Because when I was thinking about this, you've got well, what used to be JoJo's, Olivia's, smaller restaurants that offer beer and wine kind of incidental to the food versus your Carboni's, Jail Beers, Clive's, those types, where, those are beer bars. So if there was a way to create a dividing line between incidental versus primary, whether it be square footage, although Carboni's is a pretty small bar, but that was where my head was at, is if there's a restaurant that wants to offer as part of a meal versus come for happy hour, 2-for-1s, that seems like a fairly clear dividing line. We can continue to discuss how that's determined. And then the last piece, Michelle, you had mentioned that some of the cities that implemented something like this, that the businesses that you typically wouldn't expect to have violations did, you could consider some type of, I don't want to call it a penalty, but if you've got a small establishment that continues to get PD out there, you could feasibly just move them into that other
Like Venus?
category. Well, I wasn't gonna name names, but,
It's no longer
They're
around.
gone now.
you know,
It's
there's
no longer around.
you could do some type of strike policy where, we'll offer you this lower tier, but if you're not gonna,
Or they can join a STAR program.
yeah, we could do a star program and then you could, but that's where my logic was.
Okay. Dan Kay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I like the capacity approach because less ongoing maintenance to require reporting, although we see some cities in our example that Ms. Collins brought forth do ask for, and then there's the incentive, you're gonna pay the highest rate if you don't report your sales. But capacity tends to maybe be a little bit more of a neutral, because if you have seating for 100 or if you're seating for 500, then what you do as a business is really up to you, how well you succeed or not. And so it's a bit of a level playing field starting point for everybody.
Capacity.
And to Councilmember Workman's very quotable point, in my opinion, I'm just trying to throw a hint out to John.
Afraid about
Little inside joke on getting pressed. He did. I like that too, because there are businesses, and you cited some great examples, where it's a very incidental versus primary to their business. And so I don't know how, though, that to me looks a little challenging on differentiating those two, but maybe there's a way to do it. I would be in favor of that too. But I wanted to also say I'm highly in favor of a tiered structure. Going back to the discussions we had a year ago or so, before COVID even happened, we were talking about going to a tiered system. So I would like to see us do that. And I think 3 or 4 tiers is probably where I favor, because otherwise you lump too many disparities within one group. You could have a relatively small store grouped in with a relatively big store if you don't add a few more tiers. So how that works out, I think it's got to be based on, staff can do the work. But I think that's a great way to approach it. I did see some examples. Inver Grove Heights' model was the one that impressed me the most. And maybe it's because of the diversity there, disparity from the lowest to the highest. It really gave some relational respect to that small player, and it went higher than our current fee for the big players. For the highest performing or highest capacity would pay, I think it was 10,000 or whatever. But so a pretty good range between 3,500 and 10,000. And so,
Yeah.
I don't know, I think that would be very fair from my perspective if we could implement something like that. And how the budget impact comes out, it's hard to tell, because you could move those tiers, from that starting, that ending. But my guess is it would have some negative impact, but I would be okay with that. I don't think it'd be dramatic, but who knows? You got to dig into the numbers to do some modeling and see how it comes out.
Okay. Kara, you have any comments?
It's a little chancy when we're asking them to report their income.
That's right.
Seems a little intrusive.
Me too.
And I understand the why, like I understand why, but that seems pretty intrusive into a business.
Yeah, if you're talking, Dan, to go tier in terms of how much they pay, I would be okay with that, and I just don't want to ask for their sales. If we're doing capacity, so a smaller bar restaurant is different from one with a higher capacity, but it's not where we're going to ask. I just don't like having to ask our restaurants and bars to send us their revenues for the, but, you know, if we go to the capacity level, if you're going to do the tier in terms of capacity level, then we don't have to ask for their financials, their sales. So you can say somebody has a 50 capacity to somebody perhaps with a larger restaurant like the Med Cruz or Porter Creek or Chianti, are larger restaurants. You know, they would be at a different tier, but we don't have to burden them with telling them to send in their
Right.
financials. Yeah. Kara?
And if we're going to base this off capacity, I would ask that we exclude outdoor capacity, since that's kind of a moving target at the moment.
Yeah, and it's
That's a
usually
good
just
point.
for the summer, yeah.
Yeah, how do we?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, summer's only,
3 months,
so I would exclude outdoor capacity.
yeah.
I think you'll find some restaurants are gonna put some heaters up this winter and be outside anyway, so.
Yeah, but,
More power to 'em.
yeah, will, Vince?
I see a possibility for inconsistency by going by capacity purely based on the example that you just said with Nina's, which was a little closet bar, which had wonderful food, but I don't think that was primarily why they were so busy. So they,
Drink.
you know, does a bar like that, which I don't think we have many of, benefit from a lower liquor license, which the foundation of is based on our need to send our PD there? Do they benefit from a lower cost just purely by virtue of having a smaller space? Even though they might not be a food-oriented, primarily oriented business. And I understand wanting to be sensitive to the sales documents, but I think we just spent 3.5 weeks going over tax documents for our CARES grant, so it's not completely unfamiliar territory that we've asked for that. So I'm still not sold on Squarespace, but I'm just one person, so. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, is there a need for input from our establishments? Maybe there's an idea out there from our restaurants and bars that might be better than what we're talking about right now.
You know, that's a good point, Vince. You know, we always bring in the impacted, whether it's residents or a business. They need to tell us. We did that with our apartments for rental. They came in and they told us. And so I think that's really probably the next step. We should find out from our restaurants and bars what their thoughts are. Melanie?
Madam Mayor and Council, just from a point of process, we would have a public hearing and notify our licensees for any liquor license changes that's required.
Yeah, but I wonder if we could do an engagement with them prior to it. Because I think they would have, I always want them to have a voice. I know that we have a public hearing and they have a voice there, but we've got, you know, so if we have 2 or 3 different tiers of fees. So we're just looking at fees and different capacity, whether it's 2 or 3. What does that mean? Right now, it's one single tier, right? Melanie?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, and I guess maybe it'll be helpful to understand, affirm the goal of the council. Is the goal to recognize smaller businesses, or is the goal to recognize businesses that have lower liquor sales? Or is it something, perhaps it's something else? Because that'll help us craft a proposal
Yeah.
for the council to consider.
Exactly. So, council, your thoughts. Is it sales? Or is it, because if they're small, their sales aren't going to be as high as the others. So Vince, you had a thought.
Well, so I guess my thought going into this was just that we would differentiate between the incidental liquor sales to the food versus the 2-for-1 happy hour bars that were primarily getting their sales from alcohol. Because a smaller establishment that's selling paninis and a glass of wine, in my opinion, probably doesn't need to pay the same liquor license fee that a bar that's hosting, softball tournament after parties. Because they're two very different business models that are gonna require different resources depending on,
Yeah.
management and other things, but.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Michelle before I come back to you, Dan G.
My question's gonna be
Because,
for Michelle, but go ahead.
yeah, because I know that we have a different fee for beer and wine.
Yes, Madam
We
Mayor.
do
and
have a
I-
different
and I-
fee.
And I don't have that number off the top of my head right now, but it's a significantly reduced amount.
Yeah.
For,
Like JoJo's.
Wine and full strength beer fee. They can have that, and it's significant,
Isn't it?
700, something.
Yes,
It's very,
under
very-
$1,000.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
it's
is.
very insignificant.
So this is just the hooch.
This is the
Yeah.
This would not
powerful
affect
stuff.
somebody like JoJo's.
Okay.
Because they did not
Well-
have that full on-sale liquor license.
It
Then
was
that
just
This
beer
would
and wine.
affect, this is not going to affect many of the, I'm thinking like
Oriental.
Nasang Restaurant and those
Right.
kinds of
Yeah,
things, because
India
they do not
Palace.
have these full on-sale licenses.
Okay.
Yeah. India Palace, Nasang, a lot of our,
A lot of
Cultural
these smaller
diverse.
restaurants just have beer and wine.
yeah,
Okay, that helps.
Olivia's has full.
yeah. They
They
did
do.
get a full liquor license.
I think they have that specifically because they are caterers as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
And they need that for the catering.
yeah. Dan G?
Aren't bars under the Minnesota statute required to serve a certain percentage of food versus liquor?
Yeah.
Anyways?
Yeah,
So in many, there was a percentage requirement. That requirement they're still required to sell food, but the percentage requirement, my understanding is no longer, it's not a set percentage anymore. You're just required to serve.
You just have to have food.
You're required to serve meals. And so definitely, you're still required to sell food. There's not a percentage requirement anymore that I'm aware of. And, sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
it'll come back.
It'll come back to me.
Yeah, and
But,
I would think we need to just keep that fee structure for just beer and wine establishments.
It's a
Absolutely.
different license. It's a different liquor license.
different-
This is a full on-sale liquor license. That is a completely separate liquor license.
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar to how a off-sale is different than an on-sale license. You know, it's a different type of license.
Yeah,
I'm strictly talking about the ones that serve full
Yeah.
liquor, full bar.
and restaurants, yeah.
And of those, I don't know that we have that many small restaurants that have those full on-sale licenses.
Okay. Members of the council, your thoughts. We've had tiered in terms of capacity,
Maybe I should pull up.
but we're setting aside the wine and beer. That's a separate liquor license. We're only dealing with the full liquor license with restaurants and bars.
We
Dan.
recently approved
I
that
do like
full
the tiered for the
license.
smaller ones with the capacity and that. But I do understand what Vince is talking about, because I know some of the bars that are small bars, but they're packed. And they sell a lot of liquor there, so I don't know where that.
So you're not
Where do we
quite
find that middle for this? Because there's never gonna be a perfect solution for any of this stuff, and I know that, I get that.
So you're saying, because Vince is saying, he doesn't.
I
under-
wanna
the
make it
capacity.
easier for smaller restaurants to come into Burnsville and have a liquor license and open up a little bistro and serve food out here. And that's really where my direction's been on this whole thing.
That's one of the reasons I like the IGH's model, because it started out at 3,500. That makes it more palatable for smaller places to come in and open up.
Okay, Kara?
So, I can see pluses and minuses to both of this. Is there a way that we could look at both of them, but, because we have to have like public comment and all that kind of stuff. At that point, we invite our restaurant and bar owners to come in, and we just ask them, here's the two on the table, which do you prefer?
Yeah, and our staff can do that through our open houses.
Because I would feel more comfortable with them getting
Yeah.
to decide a
Yeah.
little bit of their destiny on
I
this,
do. That's
know?
where I always want to go. Melanie, I always want people to
I
have
want
a
them to
voice.
pick.
Yeah,
They would say
Melanie?
no fee.
I would pick that too. I'm okay with that. So they would have at least one vote.
Well, but we still have to, we always say use or pay, and not the rest of the community. So Melanie?
Matt's pulling something up, but while she's doing that, what I think I'm hearing is that there's a desire for capacity, the square footage, a range
there's
within
nutmeg.
that. But then, so those smaller businesses might have a lower fee. That looks to me to be the Shakopee model. And then the second model, it seems, is that based on liquor sales or overall sales? That's what I'm looking for council feedback on. Because the Inver Grove Heights model is about sales. Maplewood talks about the ratio of liquor to non-liquor sales. So if the council would help us with that, we would be able to run from there.
I don't,
Yeah. Because here's the 3.2% off sale, here's the, here are just the wine, beer and wine, 3.2 and wine.
Why don't you go up to the full?
And they have a different,
If you have a wine on sale license with a 3.2 license, you can sell strong beer.
Can you go up to the on sale, the full on sale? Because that's, I think, what we're looking at. There we
and then
go.
here's all of the on sale. I think we need to contact these folks, on sale Sunday, on sale. And they can be presented what Michelle presented to us. They can have the benefit of, but Melanie is right. What is the goal? And remember, there is a cost for staff. Kara,
Could you outline what staff does with these licenses? So if this is a reimbursement for staff time, could you walk us through what staff does with these licenses?
Mac, you want to answer that? Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, every year, of course, there is initial applications that come in. There are reviews involved. There are quite a few documents that have to be submitted, liquor liability insurance, information about the owners, the background information and that types of things. Have the backgrounds processed through the police department. Then the licenses, once they're approved through the council, have to go to the state for final approval and then back again. There is some also administration due with those who don't get their information in on time or something's incomplete and that type of thing for follow-up. Also, there's follow-up related to those who don't pay it all up front. You have to keep track of which ones haven't paid yet and make sure that you follow up with them. Make sure that they don't have any violations against them that, maybe you're not aware of or something like that. So I think that they're, for the staff administration part of it, I think more involved in our resources. That's something that we kind of account for. That's what we've always done. This would mean, a tiered structure would mean more staff resources just to keep track of everything and figure out how it's divided up and who's divided where and who switched from one to another. If they added 2 more tables, does that mean now they need to pay because they hit the limit, or, that kind of thing. So a little more administrative to keep track of which businesses would be at what tiers. And then any documentation, if they're required to provide documentation to maintain that, make sure it's, any private information is maintained. That's something that we always pay special attention to. Anytime we can keep from having to collect private information, any non-public information, that's something that we want to do. We don't want it if we don't have to have it, because that's something that potential breach could happen. So we always try to make sure that we're only keeping that information that we absolutely need. But more of the costs involved probably revolve around enforcement, and that could be code enforcement, and that could be police enforcement. It could mean a lot of different things. I mean, if they're not maintaining their building properly, that would be a code enforcement issue. Code enforcement also gets in, we've kind of had some blurred lines with that enforcement of licensees before, especially when liquor license and also massage therapy licenses. Those code enforcement's very involved with the police department and helping out with those enforcement actions. And then, of course, just your normal police enforcement of dealing with any issues that may
911
arise at the
calls.
building and that kind of thing.
Okay. Melanie, did you want to add to that?
No, Madam Mayor, I think Matt covered it.
I think I touched on, did I
Okay.
miss anything?
Kara?
Okay, so that sparked a couple ideas that I have. First of all, if there is a lesser fee for people who pay all at once versus paying over time, since that is less staff time, that may also encourage people to pay all at once and have less processing and less staff time on that. If we do go to a capacity model, or if our businesses choose a capacity model rather than a sales model, if you go with the fire marshal capacity and base your capacities off of that, this is not something that will change from year to year unless, of course, they alter their building. So that could make it a little more manageable, easier for staff to work on that. So those are 2 thoughts on that. But I would reiterate, I realize that staff is looking for council to make a decision on this, but on which route we go. But my decision really is that we should be asking these businesses which they prefer, and whichever one they prefer, I'm fine to go forward with.
Yeah. And using the options that you presented this evening.
Sure.
For me, it's about getting the people to have their voice.
I did,
These on sales Sunday, on sale. It's not a big group, and I tell you, I look at all of them and they'll show up.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
if I may, one of the things I also noted was that some of the cities told me that there are those that don't like to provide that sales
Yeah,
information to the
I
city,
know.
and they opt to just pay the highest fee.
Yeah,
I can understand that.
I do too. So, council, are you all right with having staff then contact our on sale, Sunday on sale restaurants and bars and have a conversation, put out the three options that staff has presented to us tonight, and I want them to have a voice. They need to have a voice. It impacts them.
Yeah. Kind of
Okay.
like our liquor store discussion, I'd like to hear from them.
Yeah,
I still
okay.
don't like capacity.
Yeah, well, you know, they'll tell us what they want.
Movie theater's gonna sell far less than Tavern 13.
No, you're right. Okay, so everybody's okay, we're gonna have staff then move on and have a conversation with our restaurants and bars, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item then is the max tax discussion and our city manager and Melanie and Jenny are going to be presenting. I think, Melanie, you're going to kick it off?
I'd be happy to, Madam Mayor and Council. Tonight, we have our kind of our annual discussion about getting your feedback on preliminary max tax. Just a reminder, we need to set that max tax by end of September. So we do have some time between now and then to get some feedback and to continue to revise the budget. This is a highly unusual year. We have more moving parts than I think we've probably ever had in any of our experiences. So what will be, Jenny will be walking through tonight is a review of where we are today, August 25th, and be here to answer any questions you might have. But, you know, again, also note that we do have quite a few moving parts, and we've got some time that will continue to revise the budget between now and September. So with that, I'll turn it over to Miss Jenny.
And also to set the budget in December.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, Jenny.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here to go.
Now you're going to have to,
Oh.
your volume needs to be up.
Oh, should I go up there? All right.
Why don't you try sitting?
All right, is this better?
Much better.
Okay, great. All right, the first slide is just reviewing the process. We've already had our preliminary discussions early in June on the preliminary budget pressures. Tonight is the review of the max tax proposal. It's the result of detailed review by staff over the past couple of months and fine tuning the budget, at least what we know today in preparation for the consideration of the max tax. Adoption of the max tax is scheduled for September 22nd. This max tax adoption is required by state statute and is the maximum amount that may be adopted for 2021. It's used by the county to send out proposed tax statements in November. After the max tax adoption, the city staff will complete the proposed budget, which will be provided to council on September 30th. In October, we have department presentations scheduled at a work session on October 27th. And then council work sessions on the budget. There are two in November. The first one on November 10th will review the general fund and other property tax supported funds. And the second one on November 24th will be focused on the capital projects, CIP, and enterprise funds. Finally, on December 8th, the council will adopt the tax levy and budget for 2021. Final distribution of that budget should be December 31st. I know that's not on the calendar, but I wanted to mention that too. Tonight, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to discuss the projected max tax levy for 2021 and provide an opportunity for council to give staff and direction. What we have tonight, what we'll cover tonight are these four areas: review the market rate and tax base for 2021, look at current service level funding projections, discuss fund balance, and as well as review the heart of the city street maintenance, streetscape assessment process. So over the past year, the City Council has spent time discussing what's important to you and has adopted an updated vision statement as well as values and strategic priorities. The 2021 budget was prepared in alignment with these ideas.
I like this page. It's very well done. It's all on one.
Yep, it's all together, so. This slide is just a short recap of the things we discussed at the June work session. 7.53% preliminary levy increase was projected for current service levels. The 5.1% is the preliminary 2021 market value increase that that the county has presented us. We discussed some fund balance policy ideas and options, as well as reviewed some preliminary 5-year plans for the other property tax supported funds. This slide just reviews how property values are projected to change for 2021. These are the preliminary numbers. The total increase is 5.1%. That's on the right-hand column. The other valuations, apartments saw the largest increase this year at 9.6%, followed by commercial and industrial at 5.1% and residential at 4.3%. This would be similar to the information. I believe we had this slide at the June presentation, and as to date, we have not gotten any new information. This would be the same information that was on that slide.
Okay.
A little over $51 million in new construction was included in the valuation this year. You can see that as those little green sections at the top. Most big part of that is new apartment construction for the year. And, you know, there is a time lag between when the construction is completed and when it appears on the tax roll. So we should expect that trend to continue for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Vince?
are these figures units that have been completed and are now occupied?
Yeah, so this would be, I believe, the beginning of the year 2020, completed, occupied, for payable 2021, so.
Okay.
Yep,
They've all been issued their certificate of occupancy.
COs. Okay.
yep, so,
Thank
you know,
you.
we've got a number that are under construction or scheduled, you know, for construction later in the year, so we'll see those increases in later years.
Okay. Thank you.
This slide is just, shows the last 10 years of new construction value added by property type. And you can see 2021 is quite an increase over the prior years. 23 million in apartment value, 20 million in commercial industrial, and 8 million in residential value for preliminary 2021.
Ooh, look at that, 50 million.
Okay.
So this next slide just presents how does that translate into, you know, property taxes. The $51 million in market value translates to about $780,000 in new tax base or tax capacity. If you apply an estimated tax rate to that, the estimated city tax on that new construction would be approximately $350,000. That equates to about a 0.89% of any levy increase over the previous year.
Yeah.
So. This year, the budget, what does the budget accomplish and what are our long-term challenges going forward? The city is a servants organization. This budget does maintain current service levels at a flat staffing level. There are no FTE increases incorporated into this year's budget. There continues to be a consistent demand for city services, especially through the pandemic. It also invests in recruiting and maintaining and developing a high-quality workforce. Some of those things include final phase of the compensation study implementation, diversity and belonging initiatives, investment in organizational development, and as well as an investment in a sustainable health insurance plans going forward. It also addresses community and organizational needs, certainly ensures high-quality, responsive, and professional service going forward. Leverages technology so we can enhance our online presence and manage the organizational needs going forward, as well as being able to pivot operations quickly, as we've seen we've needed to do over the past many months. So it also addresses the selected city code overhaul and maintains our infrastructure and assets. So construction projects are projected to continue. We continue our maintenance and investment in our facilities and our parks and open spaces. One thing the pandemic has, I think, highlighted is how important those are to the community. It also includes the fleet and facility studies to help us right-size our fleet and also kind of plan for the future as far as what our needed facility and fleet improvements are and our maintenance going forward. One of the main, obviously the main challenge is what is the sustained economic impacts of the pandemic on the future? What are the revenue impacts? Revenue declines and any future closures or restrictions of facilities will have lasting impacts in 2021 and perhaps beyond. Also, what are, the impact on the cost of goods and capital, that also may change, and, we'll have to keep monitoring these things as the process goes along. This chart shows the property tax increase projections. The line shows the June projection, and the green bars show where we are tonight. As you can see, we remain at the 7.5% level. Going out 2022 is a little higher at 5.5%. I think we had shown 5% in June, and 4.5% in 2023, and then going down a little bit under our previous projections in those 2024 and 2025 years. What are the main impacts? What are the main changes that have happened to get to these amounts for 2021, and what are the changes since June? This slide goes over that. General fund operations, the current service level projected increase, that is at $1,687,000. That's actually down a little bit from our June projection. I believe our June projection was about 5.05%. I think it was $1,008,000, a little over $1,008,000. So as staff has refined the projections over the past couple of months, those projections have come down. The decrease in other revenue sources has come up a little bit, and I think as we, over the past couple of months, and as staff has looked and analyzed revenues, and I think, things have become a little more long-term as far as the economic impacts. That number has gone up. I believe that was at 1.2% of the increase. It's now at 2.39%. Approximately $450,000 increase, or has changed by $450,000. Planned funding for capital funds, that remained the same. That's the same projection we showed you in June. The debt service levy, we were able to reduce that to a 0% increase. There was a matured bond fund that we were able to use that
Yay.
remaining cash from to reduce or the increase, or at least it will be maintained at the same level as last year. The EDA levy increase, that is the same. That has stayed the same. It is a planned increase based on the things that the economic development types of expenditures that we planned for.
Where's the infrastructure trust fund in this?
That is included in the capital funds, and
Okay.
that one is a 3% increase, and that
Yeah, because
I think it's
in the background,
yeah.
but, I'm looking at your
So that,
projected levy, and it's usually in,
I actually the next page will show it.
oh, okay.
Good, I'm glad I put this in there. This just shows the totals, total projected levy and then the increase. So you can see under the capital funds
Yeah.
total, that's a $91,000 increase over last year. That is part of the regular increases that we had programmed into the 5-year plan at 3% a year, I believe. So that is still included. Parks capital as well does have a planned increase. So this is the projected increase, total should match the previous page, but this also just shows the total levy by fund. This slide does show our 2021 projected revenue decreases. We did increase our estimate for possible uncollectible taxes or tax petitions in 2021. Through the first half collections of 2020, those have mirrored 2019 pretty closely. But as we've been told by the county, and I think we've predicted, if we do see impacts, most likely it will be in the second half collections. So we'll find that out in December, but we just want to make sure we're prepared for that and going into 2021 as well. Licenses and permits. For building permits, I think we've predicted that we're going to be probably in the 5-year average range. That's normally how we budget for those permits, and so those are actually, we're not budgeting a change for that, but we did program in a license, an impact on license fees possibly going down. So, and those will be fine-tuned depending on, you know, what approach we take, but there is a projection in there for that. Charges for services, that includes EMS revenues. We have programmed a slight, proposed a decline. These numbers actually get us very close to what we collected in 2019. So we're not going worst case scenario, but we have seen a reduction, and as so far in 2020, it's come back a little, but not quite yet to what we had expected. So we took a conservative approach and proposed about what we'd collected, about what we'd seen in 2019. Investment income, that recognizes the continuation of probably some low interest rates for the near future. I think we can probably see that those are most likely going to continue into 2021. So those estimates were reduced. We have a slight reduction in intergovernmental revenue. That also takes into effect street maintenance, revenue from the state of Minnesota. They've told us that we could possibly expect a 15% decline. So this is a combination of some increases and decreases, but it does include that 15% reduction. And all other, this would include antenna rental, fines and fees, facility rental, other things. We have seen some declines in those areas too, and those will be are anticipated going forward.
So revenue losses are close to $1 million.
Yeah, at this point with what we know, and certainly we're going to monitor, we continue to monitor this and look at these projections because things have evolved, quite a bit even over the past couple of months, but that is our projection at this point.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to go to Keely first and then to you, Vince.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one question. Of the 903,000, almost 904,000, what of that would be a one-time loss of revenue? Because assuming everything gets back to normal next year, if we raise our levy to cover that, added into that levy increase, which is the 2.39 added, we've now built it into our base, and we're going to collect that year after year after year because it's now part of the base revenue. But if we're going to put one-time losses into that base, then when those revenues come back, we now have both the levy and the revenue coming in. So is there a way to separate those to short-term loss, strictly one-off loss due to COVID, versus maybe there's some numbers in there that are long-term losses, right? We're never going to get that back type of thing. But we don't need to levy year over year by raising our base. We just need a one-time patch, call it, to offset those. can you kind of talk about the difference of that levy increase boost,
Yeah.
which is a permanent increase, right?
Right.
And what of these fees and lost revenues are probably not going to be long-term, right? Just a one-year thing.
Yes, hopefully. I mean, I think they will, it may not bounce back immediately. I think we will, obviously, this is projected for 2021. We're not sure. It could be short, it could be shorter, it could be longer. So we want to make sure we're not, in these estimates, we're certainly not taking worst-case scenario, but we're also not, taking best-case scenario. We're trying to be, come somewhere in the middle. Certainly, some of these may be more one time, or may come back. I do expect that it will take a little bit longer to rebound. If you do raise the property tax, certainly that does raise your base. It does allow you, certainly in coming years, you would maybe not have to raise it.
Yeah, because you addressed that in the background, Councilmember Keeley, and I think you're going to go through all of that because we have a 1.2 million in excess.
Yeah. So there is,
we can, and I talked to Melanie about that because with everything that continues to move, they're going to bring some of that information back to us. And Melanie, if you want to speak to that, then I'll go to Vince.
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Council, as I mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts here as far as projections for lost revenue, how fund balance will end up at the end of the year. That's why we're bringing a fund balance policy forward to you to get some feedback on. So again, I wish we had a little bit more assurance, but as of today, I think Jenny outlined in her memo that we've got, assuming a revised fund balance policy, there's a $1.2 million in excess of kind of a cap that we had talked about. So these are all items for discussion and council feedback and your perspective on, but we've got a couple different irons in the fire, I'll say.
Yeah, because I understand exactly what you're talking about, Dan Kay, because now when you put it in, now you're building that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why we always use one-time
Yes.
funds.
And I know that it is it's a process. This isn't a final number, but we all know that when a number like 7.53 is published as a discussion, that throws a big scare and a warning flag into a lot of taxpayers' minds. And so we have a long way to go.
Yeah,
We have some additional tools. We got to work through the process where I don't know that anybody up here would say okay to 7.5%, but I certainly won't. But I think I just kind of wanted to get a sense at this point without getting too deep into it, how those one-time losses relate to a long-term levy increase. So thank you.
okay. Vince?
Essentially, that was the trajectory I was going down is, I don't need to spend any more time on it. That is almost exactly what I was going to ask, so.
Okay, yeah. Because I was thinking about that when I know that we have lost revenues. Talked with Melanie about that. I know that we have set aside a fund balance so that we can look at incidents that we encounter that we didn't budget for or any of that, whether they are natural or health or man-made. So we had put that in place, and so we had 1.2 million there. So we can take a look at all of that. Okay, Jenny,
okay.
back to you.
This next slide, we presented, I believe, in June. This is just updating that. I don't believe it changed very much. I think a couple dollars, actually. But the median home value and an impact of the 7.53 levy increase, what that would do. The median value did go up 3.7% for proposed 2021. That equates to approximately $82 annually, or about $680 a month.
Okay. So the increase is $6.83. $6.83 a month.
Per month, yep, it is. And so, yeah, the median home value increased 3.7%. Total residential market value increased 4.3% for comparison. Annually, each year, the council does consider the current level of fund balance and whether some items might be funded out of available fund balance. The council has a policy. Generally, fund balance use is reserved for one-time uses. These one-time uses are annually identified and are routinely included in our planned use of fund balance. The first item, use of restricted for landfill, that comes from restricted tipping fees that the council has on hand in fund balance that is used for sustainability and recycling activities. Proposed in 2021 at $151,161. The next item is Ice Center debt service. About 10 years ago, the council
Are we
committed.
at the end? Are we getting to the end of this?
This is 2021 is the last year.
Oh,
yes.
good.
So it was a 10-year commitment of a total of $1.4 million to assist in the annual debt service
Yeah.
for the Ice Center debt. So yes, proposed 2021, that is the final year of that
Okay.
item. Elections are funded every other year, obviously, when out of fund balance. Community development software and vehicle replacements, those are paid from permit fees that were restricted, or permit fees on hand. And monuments were initially in the plan, but those have been delayed until 2023. So we had a proposed $150,000 in 2020 and $160,000 in 2021.
Yeah. Which monuments were going to be installed in 2021, but now pushed to 2023?
So along 35E, north and south, I believe, right,
Yeah,
Ryan?
is that where,
Yeah, Madam Mayor, we're hoping to get the monuments at the south border with Lakeville and Egan this
Yeah.
year. And then it was gonna be the two County Road 42 ones next year. And then the last frontier would be the southbound 35W one. So we
Okay.
just moved all three projects out by.
so we're delaying that to 2023? Okay. It's been a long journey, a very long journey with these monuments. You know, we say you belong here, people need to know where here is.
That's a good point. They'll be on our water tower in a few months.
Yeah. Okay.
And the last item on that list, to be determined, any other one-time uses the council wishes to consider. So, right now, the planned use of fund balance proposed in the 2021 budget is $677,000 approximately.
Okay, those are all the one-time uses. So then we can also then take a look at the lost revenue side of the ledger.
Yeah, and I believe the one, I think you referred to the 1.2, that is above and beyond what's available for the 600, that takes the $677,000 into account. So,
Okay,
just. This is the current fund balance policy, the main items. Maintain 35% of budgeted expenditures for cash flow. It includes an additional $2.1 million target amount for contingency, and use of fund balance above the target balance limited to one-time uses. As we're looking at what a proposed fund balance policy might look like, this maintains a fund balance of 40 to 50% of budgeted expenditures for cash flow. It will propose that the council would annually review amounts above 45% for possible one-time uses, and approve, you could approve use of fund balance above 45% for one-time capital and operating uses.
will this address our emergency contingency
Yes, in that, use.
in that 45%?
Yep, above 45%, and, you know, it will, in the policy, talk about, it's available for one-time uses and what it would be available for, so.
So
yep.
if we have a natural disaster, like we had the straight winds in 1998,
Yep. Yep, for
Pandemic.
unforeseen, one-time
the
emergencies.
pandemic,
yep.
we can, okay.
Yep, and, you know, strong financial results in 2019 did result in a healthy general fund balance. I think total fund balance was 62% of budgeted expenditures, and unassigned was 52%. So that is a, we did come into 2020 with a healthy fund balance. Why change the policy? This proposed policy maintains a target fund balance within the state auditor's recommendations. Their recommendations are approximately 30 to 50% of fund operating revenues, or no less than 5 months of operating expenditures. So that 40% floor does give us a good, solid base, and is within their policy. Creates a policy that's easily explained and understood, and ensures the city has adequate funds for cash flow and any contingency going forward, and provides further guidance for when additional fund balance may be used and for what purpose.
Any thoughts on this change in the fund balance policy, council members?
Go to the next slide.
Councilmember Keeley?
I don't have a problem with it. In my conversations with City Manager Lee, I mentioned that, you know, having the 35, talking about an adjustment up there a little bit, I don't really have a problem with. When we sort of blended everything, like our 2 million set aside for an emergency, it became a little less trackable and identifiable, and I kind of didn't like that idea. It's, you know, we know it's there. It is all coming from the fund balance pot, but when we have that hard number, we have our 35% number, we have our 2 million, and then we look at, okay, what's in excess of that?
Yeah.
And that's what we always had. It was very simple and easy to track and follow and say, okay, that's what we have for one time. What is our priority list of one time? What can we afford? What we want to do? And we make a decision and we do it. So it was real clean and easy. So throwing it all into one potentially tends to make it, I guess, a little foggier, you know, than when you've got it laid out like so black and white. So, you know, I'm open to the 35 going up. I know that we're at the minimum, right? It says 35 to 50, and we're right at 35.
Yeah.
And moving that to 40, for instance, or something like that, I don't have a problem with. But I kind of want to, I would personally like to hang on to that clearly identified excess for a crisis. That is our crisis fund. It's our straight line winds of 60 miles an hour in May of '98 that took out all those trees, and it gives our ability, the city, the ability to pay for those cleanup and then get reimbursed from FEMA or the state or whatever, and then the money goes back in the fund. And so it's tough to give up that. Now, the city manager Lee made a good point about, you know, that was a long time ago when we set the 2 million. And what's the cost of a
money
major storm
today?
today
What's
versus
the
back then? So maybe we
Yeah.
need to bump it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's really an arbitrary number to
Yeah.
begin with. It wasn't really scientific. We knew that we had some costs back in '98. Maybe it was based on that more than anything. And so the next really bad storm could do, you know, $3 million. Who knows? But we don't know. And so it just has to be a number that we're all comfortable with, is going to get us someplace in a hurry and fund a cleanup, even if it's not going to fund 100%. It's going to get us a long way towards that. I think that's really the purpose of it. That's my thoughts.
And I agree with you, because we've had this discussion, and it's always nice to know what that number is. But the more I had a conversation with Melanie on this, and I said, then I will feel comfortable with the policy, that we have language in the policy that addresses these emergencies. And then it's there, that we use that fund for those activities. So I'm okay, you know, because when we had this discussion, I was right on the same thinking with Dan. It's very clear. This is 2 million, and the more I think about it, you know, yesterday's dollar versus today's dollar, having 35 to 50% in contingency. But then if it's in policy that we look at the emergency, then I'm comfortable with it. So,
You can see a little bit, this graph shows the two comparisons based on the past couple of years and the projection going into 2021. It does, and you can see that floor at 40% is that green dotted line. It is a little bit higher than our 35% plus the 2 million, and that also, I think, shows kind of that probably at some point that 2 million equated to 5% and got us to 40%, but over time, that 40% is going up, so that does give us a little stronger minimum.
yep,
So, and the dotted line, the blue dotted line is the 50%. It does include, the 2020 budget does include some estimated assumptions for COVID-related revenues and expense impacts. And the unassigned, anything, we talked about that 45% being available for one-time uses. I didn't put that on here, but we do, for these 3 years, we have, there is, it would be in the middle of those two, we do have fund balance available. That would be
Vince,
about that.
you have a question?
Yes, just a point of clarification. So if we switch to a scope of a percentage, and we're saying that anything over 45% can be used for one-time use, that number could be in excess as it is this year at, did you say we're at 52%?
Mm-hmm.
So that could, and again, this is clarification here, so this is monument signs or, a post-riot cleanup. And so to put ourselves in a box at 2 million and say that's enough
Yeah.
isn't projecting out what, could potentially happen
Yeah.
by today's standards. So this is just giving us more flexibility
Yeah.
in the event of
Yeah, any emergency incidents.
increasingly more unanticipated events, in whatever fashion those might be.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
All right, I'll move on. Just want to recap. We discussed the comprehensive rate study at the July work session, and council direction was to incorporate those into the proposed budget and finance plans, which staff will do. This just recaps those rate structures. The water fixed meter charge will be based on meter size, and that will pay for the fixed costs of the system. A water usage rate based on conservation rate structures will be implemented. Sanitary has a single base charge that pays for the fixed costs of the system, and that usage rate for sanitary sewer will combine the city and metro sewer into a single rate so that we don't have that dual rate structure anymore. It really was designed with no overall revenue increases in mind because we were capturing, getting enough revenue. It just was kind of documenting where those were coming from and how they were being covered, so they were more proportional. The stormwater utility was also included in that rate study, and that proposed increase was 2% for 2021. Street lighting was not a part of that study, and currently there's no rate increase proposed for street lighting for 2021. So that's just a short recap. Next, we just have a overview of the streetscape operation and maintenance and how that works. The area around Nicollet Avenue and Burnsville Parkway in the heart of the city is part of a streetscape operation and maintenance assessment area. That area was redeveloped beginning in 1999, and the council approved installation of streetscape aesthetic improvements. These improvements include irrigation systems, concrete pavers, streetlight banners, boulevard and median turf and trees, shrubs and other plantings. These are above what is normal for the other city streets. And so those adjacent, so the city council did approve this maintenance area. The adjacent property owners in this area are assessed 50% of the annual operation and maintenance, with the city covering the remaining 50%.
And the people in the area, both commercial and residential, approved it for the higher maintenance, and we're willing to pay that because it's a special district.
Yep, and in the heart of the city, the improvements are in two phases. Phase one is more denser and more expansive than phase two, so they have more improvements in those areas. So there's two different rate structures depending on the level of improvements that you have.
Yeah, Dan doesn't pay as much as I do.
I don't know, mine went up quite a bit this year.
Because I'm right across from the park.
Not my fault.
I actually
One
have,
of them
can I,
the 101 does, so.
Yeah. Dan Keeley.
This would be a good time, City Manager Lee, to bring up the discussion we had about some of the complaints that I've received by commercial property owners about how this special assessment has grown to be such a large percentage of their total tax bill from the city.
Yeah, I think we have that in an upcoming slide, so thank you for that preview.
Sorry.
Yeah.
can I just give one
Vince?
point of clarification?
Yeah.
Is there a separate assessment for HOC 1 versus HOC 2?
I believe so. I think that probably is
That's
the
the
difference
two
between
tiers.
the phase one and phase two. So phase two has a lower, I believe, a lower rate because their improvements are, they don't have, it's not as dense or as many types of improvements that they have in that area. And I've got a map that kind of shows the different phase areas too. if,
Is that coming up?
It is coming up, yep.
I want to validate why you pay less.
And I pay more.
Yeah. I think we're in the same HOTC 1 zone though, right? Yeah, we're in the HOTC 1.
Yeah, you're in one, but yeah, so let's look at Jenny's slide.
Okay, this just kind of reviews the timing too, because there is with assessments, there is a timing difference. So this just kind of lays this out for a specific year. Actual expenses from 2018 would be 50% assessed and 50% funded by the city, excuse me. That is assessed in 2019 based on frontage, and once we know the full costs that were incurred for the previous year. That is capped at a maximum increase of 10%. And then those would be payable on residents' 2020 property tax statements.
I have a question about that.
Okay.
When it's based on frontage, what if you're a corner lot? Do they get, like we do with the housing, like we used to do with the
Yeah.
housing, or?
I believe.
Yeah. Ryan is here and he can
More than
speak
one.
to that.
Hi, Ryan.
Good evening, thank you, Councilman Gus, members of council. Yeah, you'd get a hybrids thrown around a lot this day, but yeah, you'd get, the one frontage would be based upon the phase one, and the other would be phase two. And to answer the previous question on, do you get two separate assessments? No, you just get one bill for the assessment of HOC. You don't
That's based on
per
both
property.
streets, correct?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Big double.
Yeah,
Or 1.5 or whatever it is.
I do have the totals here for the last couple of years so that you can kind of get a feel for where they're at. I believe for the payable 2020, those are about 151,000 in total. Which would be the 2018 expenses. The payable 2019 were approximately 141,000. I think there's city property of about 6,000 in there, so probably those assessed to actual property owners is about, do my math, 145,000 or so for payable 2020. And 2018 was 132,000, so it is going up. I think it's about, 8 to 10,000 a year in total expenses. Those are the actual, what actually was assessed, so that would be 50%.
I did get my assessment. letter.
Yeah, same here, just like in the last couple days, right?
Yeah.
So, can I ask one
Yeah.
more question about that?
Vince?
So, I ran into Dave Gromish a week or so ago, and we were talking about this, and we've pulled a lot of the rose bushes out, because with the tree growth and the shade, they're not surviving as well, so the turf is going
In the median.
Has that created a higher amount for maintenance with turf as opposed to maintaining? I don't expect you to know the difference between mowing and pruning.
Maybe
but
Ryan knows.
I would have thought that would maybe help reduce the cost of maintenance, but
Mowing, members of the council, mowing would be less maintenance intensive than managing rose bushes.
That number.
so if that trend continues, then could you see that number go tiered down then? Should we continue to pull those rose bushes out?
Things like maintenance of the pavers there are really expensive. As you've seen, those things are getting salt and all that. We didn't use salt nearly the level back in '99 as we do now. So we're having to do quite a bit of replacement of those pavers. And it's more the infrastructure aging and taking on that repair than it probably is the increase of cost of turf maintenance versus rose bush maintenance.
Okay.
And the other thing is that because of COVID, we did not hire any seasonal help, and so we didn't have any of the baskets, the floral baskets.
That'll be something for
But you
the following
did
year.
have 5 that you had out there that I asked Melanie about, but you were testing some things.
We occasionally will try things out to see how well they're received.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just think it's aging today. We had a lady call in and said there was water leaking by her house, and she lives right by the parking lot across from where JoJo's used to be there. And it was just a irrigation line that broke. You know, it's just, these things have been in the ground a long time, and we are just seeing more costs associated with repairs and that kind of thing. That's just an example.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, the next slide is the map. The purple area you can see is the area of the phase 1, so those would be the more dense improvements. In the green areas, and that extends, I think, south on Nicollet there would be the lower or phase 2 level assessments.
So you see, you're in the green area, Dan Kay.
It doesn't have quite the beautification that your area
Yeah.
does.
The higher maintenance area. I'm happy to pay it because it looks nice. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, any other questions on this?
So it's not split between HOC 1 and 2 then?
I don't know if that's exactly the split, excuse me. It would be more the types of improvements that are included on that frontage. That would, I think, and Ryan can correct me, I believe there was we did an analysis of that in 2017, where we looked at the types of assessment, or types of improvements that were in each area, and that's how we came up with our ratios for funding. But yeah, it more looks at what is added, what are the added aesthetic improvements on that frontage.
Rather than zones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan?
There's areas where the streetlights are every other tree, and other areas, you know, we're just at the corners. And then some places we have 10-foot colored or paved sidewalks, or half of it's pavers, half in other areas it's just gray sidewalks. So the more amenity, the more likely you're in the phase 1 of that, as opposed to phase 2 is likely to have, you know, not quite as fancy of a sidewalk, and the lights aren't quite as close together and that sort of thing.
So as the Roars building is completed, then this map would likely be updated if we streetscape the area around that as well, with the bus station and everything else?
On that one, they are actually going to maintain their own boulevard in that area. We had just to discuss that, and it was more painful to extend the city's irrigation to theirs and that sort of thing, so they will remain out of the map. But the Rise on Grand was, or no, what was that called? The one on Parkway, right
Gallery.
up Town Line, and that one is.
The gallery is,
Because they're already in it as well.
okay.
So it just wasn't quite the same situation between those two apartment buildings. They still have some of the amenities, the streetlights are in there, but they're just gonna maintain their own boulevard and that sort of thing
Okay,
on Roar's building.
thank you.
Okay, yeah, that concludes the presentation for tonight. Just added a couple things there. Is there any additional information council would like staff to provide or further direction that council has for staff at this point?
Okay. Are you all comfortable with a max tax with continuing work as we can move? You know, I listen to what Melanie says in terms, and I know there's so many moving parts. It's just in a meeting for the state with the Workforce Development Board, and there are so many moving parts there as well. So I understand what we need to go through. And we need to allow our staff to do the work as we continue to move forward. And they always do such great work, and they understand how we feel about being good stewards of the public's trust. So, any other thoughts? Are you okay with what staff has provided for us to move forward? We can't go above, but we have some, as Melanie said earlier, we still have some time between now and when we have to adopt the max tax in September. Okay, I'll go with Kara and then Dan.
I noticed today that St. Paul announced that they were not going to raise their levy this year, which was a departure from what they were signaling earlier in the year, which was a fairly significant property tax levy. And I found that kind of interesting on how they kind of did a 180 on that. And I didn't know if you had heard what other cities are looking at doing. And they were doing that specifically because they were concerned about the economic impact on their residents. So I didn't know if you had heard.
So how
What other
much
cities are
LGA does St. Paul get? We pay, and we don't get LGA. How much does LGA does St. Paul get?
I don't know that we know
And,
that.
and fiscal disparities money, and we pay for all of that.
Well, you know, if we eliminated property tax and we just went to a franchise fee, we could stop paying that.
You know,
Just throwing that out there again.
well,
It's an idea that will take time, but it's gaining
Yeah.
traction, I think.
Dan G.
I would say in light of all that we're facing and all the things we're not sure we're facing yet, you know, years past, I agree with Dan, and most of us would have passed out if somebody came to us with over 7% increase. But it's a starting point. It's not what the tax is gonna be, but it's a place for us to start. We have to have a placeholder and
Yeah.
work from there. And our staff, talking with Melanie, and our staff works diligently every day trying to find out different ways to, how do we make this thing
Yeah.
work, you know, what can we do different? And I know that, I feel confident in that, and we have a lot of discussions ahead of us going forward, so I'm good with this starting at that rate, and then we can move from there.
Yeah, and I also know that Melanie will be talking with her colleagues about what their max tax levy is going to be. Kara, I'm going to go to Vince first,
Please.
and then I'll come back to you.
Still getting used to these. And if, Melanie, if this is something that we need to maybe discuss on one-on-one, just, and if I'm way out of line, correct me here. So if we have a $2 million contingency fund balance, and we've dedicated $877,791 for planned use, that would give us a balance of $1.122 million. Is that money eligible to cover the $903,681 in anticipated decreases, or the 2.39%?
Yes, that would be available.
So in theory, we could knock out 2.4% of that levy with just the fund balance that we have on hand right now.
That is a possibility, but they're working through a lot of that stuff.
Of course, yes. I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that that wasn't something.
Yeah, because Melanie and I had that discussion, because when I, just understanding what our fund balance is and how much we have done in the past with regard to one time.
Mhm.
And, so,
Okay.
okay, Kara?
So looking at a 7.5 total levy increase, that really is exceptionally high. And last year, when we had a discussion of levy increase, plus increasing our franchise fee by, I believe, 4 times, the idea of that was, of course, so that we wouldn't have to have higher levy increases. And my concern was, no, we're going to have higher levy increases anyway, and yep, here we are. I also understand that we're in a little bit of challenging circumstances, but all of our residents, for the most part, are in challenging circumstances. And they can't just say, I want X more money. Like, they can't just do that. And so we're looking at continued levy increases. At the same time, we're having valuation of home and property increases. And we're also seeing that valuation hitting apartments particularly high, which I realize doesn't show up this year. There's always a lag. But, I mean, if I'm a betting person, we're going to do 7.5 levy increase this year, and we're going to increase her next year too. So, I have to question, at what point is this just excessive that we continue to increase the levy every year? And combined with that 4 times increase of our franchise fee last year, my view on this is way too excessive. This is way too high. Even looking at it as a max, it's too high.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to look for consensus here to move forward. So we've heard from Kara, she thinks it's too high. Dan, are you okay with the max tax as is, as we continue to work to bring it down?
Well, we're not making a max tax vote right now, and
No.
so I would reject the 7.5 out of hand. Is not something that I even want to talk about setting or even accepting or denying. I'll deny. I think we have to have another meeting and work through the numbers and get closer to something that's a little bit more realistic of what we're going to work with.
Okay, Dan G?
I think we should go forward.
Okay. Vince?
I'm not comfortable with a 7. So I'd want to continue this conversation and work and get down to a more reasonable number
Okay.
with some of those things that I just asked about, and then other
Save-
tools that we have
save the
available to
two
us.
tools. Okay,
Thank you.
so you're going to come back and we'll get some more information before we adopt the max tax in September. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So staff has direction. And is there anything, Melanie, that you and Jenny need from us?
I don't think so.
Okay, everything is good. All right, so Dan, do you have, we're at point in our for reports. There's nothing for roundtable. Dan, you have any reports?
Which Dan?
You, Dan Kay. I'm starting down at that end.
Well, I'm actually a little at a loss with notes from meetings that had happened since our last work session last month, because with our new iPad, I haven't been able to transfer all my notes from the Notes app. And I did get an email from a gentleman in our IT for me to log into the old iCloud account using our burnsvillemn.gov, or sorry, burnsvillemn.mn.us to see if they're there. A few of them did auto-upload into this new one.
And they all didn't. I'm still working with the old
2018. There's only
iPad.
4 of them from 2018. I'm like, I thought I had more than that. So anyway, I would obviously, anything that was significant would have stuck out in my head anyway, so it was more of a general report. Everyone else is abreast on what's going on with MBTA. There was a letter circulated about a remodeling grant that we got, which is great, and we're going to talk about it at tomorrow's meeting. My next meeting is tomorrow night, tomorrow 4:30. And from the chamber public policy standpoint, you know, it's been all about the impact of COVID and our city grants, and so very proud again for the staff, the work they did to do that in such a record short amount of time, and looking forward to those grants being announced and awarded to the businesses chosen through the lottery. And I know that we're gonna help a lot of businesses with that. And then what's the other transportation? We had an NLC transportation TIS committee a couple weeks ago, and really that's all about the bills that are attempting to get through Congress to fund transportation, much like everything else. So one could probably say this is an election year, and that would be true.
Okay, Dan G?
We had the DBB meeting this last month. Comcast presented to us along with the lobbying group for the ISPs. Arbig was not able to present because it went a little longer than we thought, so Arbig will be presenting next month to us, and I believe DBB is coming to us at our work session in September, is that?
I believe, yes.
Okay, so we'll be getting updates from the DBB on that as well. We also had our CVB board meeting. A lot of discussion around marketing and staffing and what's going on. They've got some presentations they've gotten ready, and I think they're getting prepared to present to council in September as well. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm sorry, who?
The CVB.
I
Burnsville.
think they're October,
Are they
perhaps.
October? Okay.
September, or
But they'll be
October.
ready. They're not going to delay presenting to us. They're going to be here.
Yeah.
With the mask, it sounded like CBB, and I was wondering which one that one
Well,
was.
then there's the CDD. So those are the 2 reports I have for now.
Kara?
Okay, I was at the League of Minnesota Cities Policy Improving Service Delivery. So for that one, we're going over what we're keeping and changing and getting rid of for what the cities are requesting the state to do for policy initiatives. I did ask for one of them to be removed, and it appears it will be. I'll find out in the next meeting. But that was a policy request that we treat people in electric wheelchairs and give them a DUI if they have alcohol. I thought that was a discriminatory practice that we should not be advocating for. So we'll see, but it looks like that one is going to be stripped out. So there's my report.
Okay. Vince?
We had LMC meetings, and I'm gonna lean on our city manager a little bit, because I think she probably was able to take better notes than I was, but we had talked about fire protection districts, local option sales tax, among other things. I think we had 2 meetings between our last official meeting. Would you like to?
You know, I think this policy committee was reviewing a lot of the existing policy, right? And I don't think there were very many changes.
It's more discussion.
There's more discussion, reviewing, getting feedback, but I don't recall any specific changes that were being asked to consider off the top of my head. Be happy to look back at my notes.
There was one point of interest I thought was interesting, that 20 cities came forward with local option sales tax applications, and the legislature did not use the new process. They're putting a pause on legislative consideration for those. I don't recall what the justification for that was.
I think there's a general reluctance to approve that regardless of the process on the legislative side.
Yeah. Other than that, I wish my 3-year-old Arnie a happy birthday. It's his birthday today.
Aw, happy birthday.
He'll probably be asleep when I get home, but that's okay.
So the Municipal Legislative Commission, we've been Zooming and meeting often. Now we're down to every other week for the COVID-19 response. Melanie has been sending all of you updates on some of the work that's been going on with MLC. And so you have all of that, but the content of things that we continue to talk about is not just COVID, but the CARES Act. This last meeting had to do with the CARES Act and really trying to understand what's eligible and not eligible. And so we had some folks come in and talk to us about that. And then, the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority, those are some of the discussions. And I think Melanie did send you all that information because it's just really a lot of verbatim and all of that. So the Regional Council of Mayors doesn't meet in August, but we did have a meeting with the governor to continue to look at how we can work together with regard to our businesses and our restaurants and bars and also with schools. It's always a very good meeting, and Commissioner Grove is there, and we get things talked about. Metro cities, I'm going to go to our Deputy City Manager, Mr. Lindberg. I think the work that we do there is the metropolitan agencies. And last time, there was not much because of the legislative session. There's not much going on. But there may be next session some more discussion. So Greg, your thoughts on that?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, that's the conversation that I recall as well. A couple of good presentations in those meetings for us, but there is not a whole lot happening, and we'll see what the future brings.
Yeah. So that's where all of that's at. And the Burnsville Community Foundation, we continue to move forward. The sculpture is going to be placed next year. It was supposed to happen during fire muster, but everything is pushed. And we also talked about the lighting ceremony and all of that. So that continues to move forward. And they're raising money for and it'll still be at around $35,000 that they'll be raising for the winter lighting. And that's it. Councilmember Gustafson, and then I'll go to.
Can I add one thing? We're talking about events. The relief sessions start on Thursday.
Yeah.
We go for 12 days at Civic Center Park. Oh, look at that, Melissa, you got the
Yes.
Suburbs.
the suburbs,
The headline.
one of our bands.
Yeah.
But it's 12 days of music, 48 bands, food trucks, tents. And we went through everything with our staff here in Burnsville, and we went through everything with the Attorney General's office at the state level, and everything's signed off. And we kick off Thursday at noon and go through Labor Day.
And it's noon to
Noon to 8:45.
8:45.
And most of the stuff from noon to 5 is free, so if you want to come listen to music and food truck or our tent or that, come on down, bring the family and enjoy yourself. And then we only sell 80 parking spots. We still maintain 250 people throughout the day, so we have people out there paying attention to all that.
Yeah, so say that again so people know. It starts at noon,
Starts at noon
and
on
it's
the
free.
27th.
But they have to, do they have to, so once you
They
hit,
can just show up
So-
from noon to 5.
so once we hit the capacity level,
Then we stop letting people in until people leave.
yeah,
We have volunteers that'll be there taking care of all of that.
yeah, and it's cars.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's all.
Yep, you can drive it in your car, your bicycle, your motorcycle,
Yeah.
baby stroller, whatever you want to come down with.
And we just social distance, listen to music,
Now,
and
you
it
know, we
goes
did
till
this in
8:30.
July. Yeah, we did this in July, and people did a really good job of
Yeah.
maintaining their spaces,
Yeah.
and they were able to dance and listen to music and just have a good time, and I think it was appropriately named when we called it the relief sessions, because
Yeah.
we certainly can use it.
And it was very well attended.
Yeah, it was.
It was very well
And
attended.
we already have some sold-out shows, so pay attention.
Our,
So when does it cost for people to come in?
5 o'clock on.
5 o'clock
Yep, and
on?
you got to order tickets online.
Yeah.
And if there's some tickets left, you can buy them at the door, but.
And so
before
they're
5,
buying
it's
it for
free.
one band,
Was that? Yes.
and then then they leave, so others can come in for the
Exactly.
second and
some
third
people
band?
buy for both bands that night.
Yeah.
There'll be 4 bands every day. 2 of them are free.
Okay. And in the evening,
That does pay for, that's anywhere from $20 to $30 a person, depending on.
for
the
2
band.
bands?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
It's good. Just want to make sure that everybody gets the details.
And thank the staff for all the work they did to help it make this happen, and Jay, the group with our public television, they're gonna be there again. They're not gonna be able to do all of them this time, because it's kind of a long run.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get a lot of the highlights, and so community television will be broadcasting it from time to time, and of course, they like to replay too, so throughout the year, we can, this winter, when we're trying to figure out what to do outside, we can look at some of those and figure it out.
Okay,
We'll figure it out.
yeah. Dan Kay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up on a fire muster activity that a group has been working on for a little while, and it looks like it's coming together. So the board that Vince is participating in needs to, I believe, get together and formally vote on it. But we've got the Fire Engine Club of Minnesota came forward with an idea that they had executed in Hastings, where I call it the reverse parade. They display their trucks with water shooting, kind of like they do here at City Hall, and people drive by and stay in their car, and the kids get to see all the trucks and see the water going off. And we're pursuing that now here at in Civic Center. We're looking at a spot on Judicial as a possibility, but their road construction over there said it was make it difficult. So a traditional water display with a bunch of fire trucks in City Hall for probably late afternoon, evening. And then the community can enjoy a fireworks show shot off the top of Buck Hill that night. This is all going to happen on Saturday, September 12th.
Of this year?
Of this year, if everything goes well. Both COVID-respecting events. The Buck Hill is discussing maybe some sort of party or dinner and cocktails, and then, of course, a bird's eye view to the fireworks on their brand-new deck for a maximum of 250 people, but more details to come on that. So we're trying to pull things together very quickly, but for the sake of the press, getting the word, helping us get the word out sooner than later. I think I'm 90% confident it's going to happen, and it'll give us at least a little piece of normalcy and a piece of the fire muster in a very abnormal year. And I think by the Saturday after Labor Day, when schools have begun to go in session of sorts, a hybrid session, I think it'll be good. And after a string of 12 days of some great music festivals, it'll be a nice way to maybe celebrate some better news and some better days ahead, and give a chance for families to drive close to the fire trucks and see the water cannons shooting in the air. So that's it. More to come on social media and other advertising and the city mechanisms as everything gets pulled together very quickly now.
The 39th and a half anniversary of Fire Muster.
It's the 39th and a 39 and a half, because next year we need to have the real 40th.
Would have been the 40th.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Is there anything else?
That's it.
There's nothing else. We stand adjourned by acclamation. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mallory.